I have to leave now. Thank you very much for this. I have,
Thank you, Professor Sirihettige. And we have come to the end of the session of 2nd September 2024. And here then I would like to invite Mr. Sachin Dulanshana, consultant in youth policy and development, to summarize to the work that we have done, the things that we have discussed today, and to mark the closing ceremony of this. Over to you, Sachin.
Good evening, everyone. So, starting from the first session, first while thanking Dr. Machiko Ohara for her insightful presentation. In the first session, she mentioned about understanding the progress of elderly people in the world, as well as understanding family caring policies in Japan. And also, she was talking about how certain policies can be helpful for Sri Lanka as well. During the group activity, we talked about that. And in terms of life expectancy in Japan, it stands as 84.5 at the moment. In Sri Lanka, it's 77, so you can see the difference there. And also, in terms of number of years that takes to double the population, after South Korea and China, it's Japan, it took only 10 to 24 years to double the aging population. So we see that there's a huge increase in aging population in Japan with her presentation in the morning. And also she talked about few challenges in Japan, such as rapid increase in population over 75 in urban areas, and also gradual increase even in rural areas with large elderly population, and also different aging situation in each area, which needs to be addressed carefully. And also, when it comes to the challenges of life expectancy, there are two categories of life expectancy which she mentioned in her presentation. One thing, usually we take one age as a life expectancy. And also, she also mentioned about healthy life expectancy. So there is a clear gap between these two as well. As an example, for males in Japan, life expectancy is at 81.41, and also health life expectancy 72. That means there is a gap. During this gap, they need some social security and some policy, some care. So that's where the aging care is necessary. And also, with regards to the healthcare expenditures as a share of GDP, Japan is currently contributing 11.5% from their GDP. If you take some other countries like USA, 16.6, and also, if you are wondering where we stand as Sri Lanka, we contribute 4.07 from our GDP to our healthcare. Well, that's kind of higher number comparing to the other regional countries like Indonesia and India. India only contributes 2.9% from their GDP to healthcare expenditure, and Indonesia is 3.4%. And also with regard to the characteristics of family care in Japan, she mentioned in the morning the family carers, they are under huge pressure. They are under stress due to various reasons, because lack of caretakers, and also lack of access to adequate care, and also some issues, there are some issues with regard to human rights protection as well. Because elderly abuse is there, and also there are increase of number of people with elderly people with dementia, so that's another issue. Then she talked about the situation in the same household aging carers, or the main carers. So there are about 58.7% main from the same household. Majority of them, half of them are spouses. and also next, child and the child spouses. And also, she talked about the working state of care workers in Japan. Unfortunately, it's mostly the females who are leaving the work due to the care work. And also, we know that when it comes to sustainable development goals, we have goal number 5 on gender equality. Unfortunately, even as a globe, we are going at a very slow rate in terms of achieving this goal. If I give you a very brief example with regards to numbers, if we go at this rate on our efforts on gender equality, it will take about 140 years to achieve equal leadership at workplaces. So you see where we stand. And also it will take about 286 years to close gaps in legal protection and discriminatory laws. So we see the connection with the presentation and the global situation with regards to gender equality. So majorly it's the women who are affected in Japan. I think it's similar to kind of resonate with the Sri Lankan's context as well. And she also talked about the care system in Japan, and also she mentioned about 90% of the care workers even not exhausting the existing mechanism like family care leave, short working hours, or time off or day off, and also they don't like limit or accept to overwork job. So these supported are not exhausted by the care workers from the families. That was also mentioned in her presentation in the morning. And also she mentioned about 3 policy contexts, including community-based integrated care, and also no one forced to leave work for family care giving, and also the new Orange Plan, especially with regard to the dementia. So these are the 3 policy contexts she outlined in her presentation in the morning. And also when it comes to the long-term care insurance, she mentioned that it is something we contribute, the citizens contribute, it's not something the government is giving away. The citizens pay for it. It's sort of like the tax. And also she mentioned about how it is in operation. Like the home visiting care is there, and also there are some elderly houses, and some of them are daycare houses where they can go and come back in the evening. And some of them are like family supported in one hand, the elderly people are supported in one hand. So majorly it's about the Japanese approach to the aging care population. So based on that presentation from Dr. Ohara, we moved forward with the group presentations. In the group presentations, it was discussed. We need to introduce proper caregiving model, because visually we try to see the connection to Sri Lanka, so we talked about that. And also, we talked about some, one of our participants mentioned about the research data. Even though 50% of the elderly people are living with their extended families, 30% of them are unhappy. So there's a huge issue with that as well in the local context in Sri Lanka. And also, in some of the group presentation, we talked about how we can make the aging productive and active. And also, we talked about we need to take a gendered look at aging, because sometimes when we look aging at a holistic view at it, sometimes we might miss certain aspects of it, especially given that we are living in a South Asian context, because we are having this patriarchal society. So in that case, we need to take a gendered look at the aging population. And also in the same group presentation, we were discussing about creating recreational spaces for adults, so that they can come together and spend some time together. In Sri Lanka, currently we don't have much places as such, and also there's a huge rural and urban divide. And also, especially it was mentioned that the policy enforcement is necessary, because it was mentioned that there are certain policies we have already introduced sometimes back, but implementation and the enforcement is necessary. So then we moved on ahead with the Professor Hettige's presentation. So Professor Hettige mainly mentioned about how we have done well in the past, especially in the post-independence era. We know that like Millennium Development Goals were introduced in year 2000. When it was introduced, majorly we feel that it was introduced for the developing countries. And also these goals were more like ticking the goals, like you tick this and you tick the goal. But in comparison with the sustainable development goals, it's a total transformation we expect. So going back to Professor Hettige's presentation, he mentioned that how Sri Lanka was doing well even before other countries were working on MDGs, because we had implemented certain policies and legislations way back in 1940s and 1950s. Certain policies could be education policy, land policies, and also the healthcare policy. These policies were introduced way back, and also due to that success, sometimes even though we had some setbacks in the past, still these progressive policies kind of overshadowed these policies. So that was kind of important note from Professor Hettige. And also he mentioned about some of the key notable achievements like high literacy rate, low child and maternity mortality, and also high level in human development index. These are some of the notable achievements with regards to MDGs, which was mentioned by Professor Hettige. And also he was mentioning about the eight goals, MDG development goals, MDGs, how Sri Lanka was doing well even before the other countries were working on them. And finally, Professor Hettige was proposing a community-based monitoring and intervention system. I think this is where we collaborate with the Japanese system, because Dr. Ohara also mentioned about the role of the social worker. The very purpose of this conference is also to get this collaboration, to see what are the best practices in Japan or Bangladesh, and what are the best practices or potential opportunities for Sri Lanka. I think that's a potential opportunity. Both presentations outline the role of the social worker. So in that case, I think all of us who are here have a role to advocate for this role, and role to advocate the policymakers to include social workers at every level. At every level, Dr. Habibur Rahman very correctly mentioned, at every level, social workers need to included in the policy making level, rather than like after introducing the policy, getting involved and trying to implement it. Policy formulation level is a necessary entry point for social workers. And in the final group presentations, we talked about reassessing the vulnerabilities in Sri Lanka, because like during the past few years, Sri Lanka faced a lot of challenges, even in the political and economic crises. A lot of data we currently have are data from maybe 5 or 6 years back. So the current situation dynamics have changed drastically. So in that case, one of the groups suggested that we need to reassess our vulnerabilities, then identify who are really vulnerable, and then accordingly tailor-make our social security plans. And also, the same group suggested that we need to introduce a digital public infrastructure where maybe every citizen has a digital code, so that some of the social security plans in Sri Lanka, unfortunately, some of them were misused. Some of the citizens are getting benefit from several schemes. So that could be prevented with the digital advancements, so it could be used properly. And also, it was discussed by few groups how we can incorporate these social rights and these social policies into the education. Because as an example, none of us learned about how the tax system works in this country when we were at schools. How to pay taxes, what happens to our taxes. So in that case, social policies and all these social rights should be incorporated into school children's curriculum so that they know about it. So the social workers or the other social officers, they don't have to fight for social policies because the citizens are aware of their rights. So they will advocate for their policies. So that was one thing mentioned in the group presentations. And also it was mentioned very important thing, social monitoring and evaluation. A lot of policies in Sri Lanka lacking this aspect. We introduce policies, we never, even in the policy itself, we never include the monitoring and evaluation mechanism. The same group also talked about how we can assess the officers, because like especially when it comes to bureaucrats in Sri Lanka, they are not answerable to the people. It's only the politicians go to the people and ask them for a mandate after 5 years through the elections, not the public bureaucrats. So they don't have any public accountability. So that group also suggested that we need to have a proper assessment process to evaluate the public officials so that these policies are implemented in a proper way. And the other group presented the social plans in 5 sectors: education, housing, employment, social security, and health. So they were also talking about how the caregiving could be recognized. Even in the morning sessions, we were talking about how the caregiving could be recognized, because the youth migration has been an issue. A lot of young people who are migrating in Sri Lanka, one of the easiest way that they find is doing the caregiving course. They might then move to Australia or New Zealand. So once again, considering the local context and the income they get, of course we have to rethink. We can't everything like customizing, because as Professor Hettige very correctly mentioned, the largest foreign remittances coming from the workers. So if we are going to keep them inside the country, we need to think about that aspect as well. So it's kind of a, maybe that's a discussion point for another forum. So these are the things we discussed throughout the day. I think all the discussion lead to one point, that emphasize the role of the social worker. So even in Sri Lanka, even in Japan, you mentioned about how there is a care manager to work on the LTC plan. So I think in that case, Sri Lanka has a lot to do, and I believe that it's not a forum where we listen to some speeches and go home, but a forum where we start to advocate for. I think this is a starting point, and I believe that everyone here who are in their respective professions or careers can start working on this. Because I think we need to leave this place with a hope. I think that hope was given by this presentation. Thank you very much. Arigatou gozaimasu and Dhonnobad, Abdul Rahman sir. So thank you very much everyone. I think my